Welcome to this press conference here today. We are here today to spotlight the crisis in Indian country, which has led two tribes, the Yurok and the Round Valley tribes, to declare states of emergency here in the state of California. The crisis is growing, and sadly, we're going backwards in the state of California in reducing the violence towards our people. Emily Risling disappeared in 2021 from the Yurok reservation. She is still missing. As a result of Emily's disappearance and other cases of violence, including suspected attempts at trafficking, Yurok Chairman Joe James and his council declared a state of emergency in October of that year. Just a few weeks ago, Round Valley Indian tribes dealt with 2 consecutive murders on their reservation, prompting the tribal council to declare a state of emergency. Anywhere else, if this was happening, task force would be assembled to look into the issues of what's going on in our communities. California was among the top 5 states with the highest number of cases of MMIW cases in the nation, according to a report in 2021. The time has come to call on the state to thoroughly look into these issues of why these crimes continue to be perpetrated against Native American people here in the state of California. According to the Federal Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, homicide is the leading cause of death for Indigenous women between ages 15 and 24. In California, has the 6th highest death rate of Indigenous women in urban cities. Following this briefing, many of the participants here will be participating in a committee hearing to discuss the challenges tribes and law enforcement are facing in stopping the violence. The state's tribes have also convened in Humboldt County to seek resolutions to the violence. They looked at public safety, the justice system, and mental health services. They looked at the needs for our foster care kids and more. We know that the violence is caused by many factors, and solutions must address all factors. At the hearing following this news briefing, we will discuss some of the concerns. Before I go on, I want to briefly mention a few bills and events. AB 44 deals with CLETs, making sure that the information between law enforcement is shared with tribal governments. So that way tribal governments know who exactly is coming onto their reservation so we can be more proactive in saving our people. Also, AB 273 deals with the foster care system and deals with notification when someone goes missing, that their families, including Native American families, are notified when someone goes missing from the foster care system. And starting tonight and through Friday, the Capitol Dome here in Sacramento will be lit up red to commemorate and to bring attention and awareness to these issues that are coming forward in the crisis in California Indian people with the missing and murdered Indigenous persons crisis that continues to go on. And on Wednesday night from 6:30 to 8:30, we have a candlelight vigil on the west steps of the Capitol to highlight how many missing and murdered Indigenous people are here in the state of California are missing. On Thursday, the State Assembly will vote on a resolution designating May as Missing and Murdered Indigenous Peoples Awareness Month, and the floor session will open with a traditional California Native American song. Now it's my honor to be able to bring up those on the front lines in Indian country dealing with this issue. Our first speaker will be Vice Chairwoman Raquel Williams from Wilton Rancheria.
Thank you, Assemblyman Ramos. Good morning, everyone. My name is Raquel Williams. I would like to thank Assemblymember Ramos for inviting me here today and thank Mary for continuing to lead the Attorney General's office as we work to end the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous people. I would also like to thank Chairman James of the Yurok tribe and their continued leadership. As I stand here today on the homeland of our people, both incredibly fearful but widely optimistic, fearful knowing that 80% of my Native brothers and sisters have experienced violence and that we face a murder rate up to 10 times the national average. Those numbers terrify me. But looking around today, as state and tribal leaders come together to champion such an important cause, I am hopeful. Incredible progress is made in such a short amount of time, and we've brought so much awareness to this. From additional budget allocations to the newly enacted Feather Alert, I'm confident and optimistic. However, even with all the progress, California is still 5th in the nation for MMIP causes. We must continue to work together to ensure future generations do not live in the same fear we have today. Thank you for your time and the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Chairman Joe James from the Yurok tribe.
Aikui Neknau, Joseph James, Chairman of the Yurok tribe. I come from the village of Shregon, located on the Lower Klamath River. I'm truly grateful for Assembly James Ramos for his leadership and all the members of the Native American Caucus for their commitment to working with tribes to end the crisis of MMIP and MMIW. I want to thank the tribal leaders, very honored and proud to be with them, to stand in solidarity, to fight to end the crisis of MMIW. Today we are here to call for action, to support the legislation for AB 44, AB 273. We are here to not only talk about our people here in California, our traditional villages, our way of life, our spirituality of who we are as people. We are taught to care, to love, uplift, and take care of one another, take care of each other. We are here today to call on our tribal leaders, our state legislators, to create laws to protect the safety and welfare of our people. We are here today to lead by example, to bring awareness, education, and also direct action for our people, not just in California, but across the nation. We're being watched how to work together, how to protect our people, our men, our women, our children. Now is the time to continue that momentum. The Feather Alert that was just passed. Very proud and honored to be part of that. With our tribal leaders, with Assemblyman Ramos and his colleagues, state of California say no more. That's what we're saying in this room today as one voice to speak for our women, our children that don't have a voice. They're looking for closure. That's what we're here today, to unite, to rally, and to call for action, to continue that momentum that we're doing with the recent passing of the Feather Alert. That's why it's important, the urgency, the passing of AB 44 and AB 273. With that, thank you. Wakla.
Thank you, Chairman. Our next speaker is President Randall Britton from Round Valley Indian Tribes.
Thank you, Assemblyman Ramos. Good day, everybody. We're here because there's a plague and an epidemic of violence throughout Indian country, throughout California, from coast to coast. And to speak to this, to these egregious acts, is heart-wrenching. I come with open arms to every tribal leader to unite, every legislator on our state level to take action immediately so we can help heal our communities. And when I say communities, I'm speaking as a community as a whole, every nation as one. We can win this fight, but we need to do it together. If we cannot support one another, then we've already lost the battle. If we stand together, we can speak to this, we can support the assemblymen, we can support the state can support us. If we lose ourselves in the hate that's driving this epidemic in Indian country, then why would we stand here as leaders? Why would we put the hard work in? We need to lead by example. Bring the communities together, bring Indian country together, support the right actions that need to be taken, and demand action. And that's why we are here today. If we do not stand together, then what is our purpose of being? And I urge every community to unite, support the assemblymen, support the state, but also demand from the state action in any way possible, and bring healing to the Indian community, to Indian country. The well-being of our youth are at risk. It's been a spiraling effect that we've been dealing with in Round Valley in recent months, and it's escalated to a state of emergency. So we are here with outreach. We demand answers, we demand action, and we will not let this fall on deaf ears. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Our next speaker is Chairperson Sarah Dusky from the Ione Band, Miwok Indians.
Good morning. It's great to be back here today, just about 1 year after we first set foot at the Capitol to address this very important issue and to bring awareness to the missing and murdered Indigenous peoples crisis that continues to plague our communities. You've heard from other tribal leaders today whose communities are suffering right now. This is not an issue that's in the past, it's an issue that's in the present. But we have struggled for decades with some of the highest rates of assault, abduction, rape, and murder in our tribal communities. And the statistics are quite staggering. I know Assemblymember Ramos shared some with us this morning. And while there has been quite a bit done at the state level to start to address this problem, we still have a very, very long way to go. Part of the challenge in finding solutions is the lack of holistic thinking and a holistic approach. Many factors contribute to the crisis: inequities in education, access to medical and mental health care, insufficient career opportunities, wide degrees of income discrepancy, and most significantly, the lack of cross-jurisdictional education and cooperation. Reducing the violence and bringing our people home requires that we address these inequities head-on, provide vital services in Indian country aimed directly at combating this problem, and educate ourselves and one another on the many ways we can increase awareness and, again, collaboration among us. Many thanks to my fellow leaders here. I know the Round Valley Tribe and the Yurok Tribe are really doing quite a bit to take the lead in this effort, and I respect them for that, and I thank them for that, and I'm sorry for what their communities are currently going through. Thank you to Assemblymember Ramos and his staff in the legislature for continuing to shed a very bright light on this issue. We all have a very important role to play here, and if we work together honestly and sincerely, we can bring an end to the suffering, honor ourselves, honor our people, honor the ones that we've lost, and bring those who are missing home. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Our next speaker is Chairperson Janet Bill from Picayune, Rancheria of Chichansi Indians.
Hilly Hilly, I'm Chairperson Janet K. Bill of the Picayune Rancheria of Chichansi Indians, a sovereign nation located in Madera County, near the south entrance of Yosemite National Park. On behalf of our nation, Mitch Gais, thank you, to Assemblymember James C. Ramos, the California Legislative Native American Caucus, and my fellow tribal leaders for the relentless work and steadfast advocacy in keeping the epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous people, MMIP, as a forefront issue across the state of California. But most importantly, standing by our collective commitment to take action in addressing it. We must continue to dismantle this MMIP pipeline that was created after centuries of disenfranchisement and marginalization of our Indigenous people. We must now act boldly with purpose to make systemic changes to end this MMIP crisis that devastates our families and plagues our communities. Today, we call on the state of California to partner with us on the key solutions that tribal leaders and advocates propose to dismantle this MMIP pipeline. Establish a red ribbon panel to address this crisis, reform our foster care system, provide parity between our tribal police and California law enforcement, educate key partners about Public Law 280 criminal jurisdiction and the jurisdictional gaps, and invest the necessary funding for MMIP prevention and intervention initiatives that protect our most vulnerable from the predators who prey on their vulnerabilities. Our nation is committed to a partnership with the state that aggressively roots out and ends violence towards Indigenous people. As always, we stand strongest together. Mitch Gais, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for that, and thank you to the tribal leaders that have assembled here today. We also want to acknowledge Chairman Smith from the Paula Tribal Council, Tribal Reservation. Next up to speak is Chairwoman Regina Cular from Shingle Springs.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, everybody. I am Regina Cuellar, Chairwoman of the Shingle Springs Band of Miwok Indians and descendant of the original stewards of the land we are standing here on today. Thank you, Assemblymember Ramos, for inviting us to speak on the missing and murdered Indigenous people epidemic and to commemorate those we have lost. Members of the media, thank you for joining us to help shed light on this critical issue. MMIP issues affect not only the Indigenous people of our state, but across the entire country as well. The magnitude of this problem is staggering, and it is a national shame that we are still grappling with it. Solving this crisis is not a one-time event, but a sustained effort that requires the involvement of every Californian. We have accomplished a lot since we stood on the Capitol steps 1 year ago. Last year, Assemblymember Ramos introduced AB 1314, which created the Feather Alert, an alert system for missing Indigenous people. It was incredibly rewarding to see that bill signed into law. The Feather Alert would not have been possible without the hard work and dedication of so many here today. Special thanks to Assemblymember James Ramos and Governor Newsom for guiding that bill into law. Additionally, over the last year, we have brought much needed attention to MMIP, continuing to raise awareness about this plague like we are doing here today. It is essential to solving this issue. Shingle Springs was honored to help increase awareness by sponsoring an independent film titled The Gift of Fear. It features a story of saving an Indigenous woman, saving her from a life of sex trafficking, and it has won numerous awards. But no matter how much we have accomplished, we know that there's still a lot more to be done. We must acknowledge that tribes face unfair barriers to crime information databases via state networks. Specifically, a void remains for state information via the California Law Enforcement Telecommunication System, or CLETS. Under Government Code 15150, which establishes the CLETS, tribal police officers are not included among the law enforcement agencies eligible to access this vital criminal information system. Therefore, tribal police and courts cannot receive or share criminal history information or protective orders without outside agencies. This void in information limits both the tribes and state's ability to protect Indigenous people. This year, our priority must be to work together to ensure our tribal police gain access to CLETS. We proved last year that when you bring together a diverse group of leaders committed to saving lives, progress can be achieved. Let's renew this effort again this year and continue to make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those that are speaking here today. Next, we have legislators that have shown up here to show their support and their willingness to engage in the cause that's in front of us. First, we have Senator Jones to speak.
Good morning. I'm Senate Minority Leader Brian Jones. It's an honor to be here this morning to help raise awareness during Missing and Murdered Indigenous Peoples Week. I want to be sure to give a special thank you to Assemblymember Ramos and all the tribal leaders that are here this morning to shed light on this important issue. My family has over a 100-year history of cooperating with tribal nations, beginning with my great-grandfather in Oklahoma, my grandfather in Arizona, my dad in Colorado and California, and now myself here in California. I have the honor of representing the 40th Senate District, which has the highest number of tribal nations of any legislative district in the country. So the safety and well-being of my constituents in these communities is of the utmost importance to me and my staff and my family. That is why I was proud to author SB 832, the SVP Accountability, Fairness, and Enforcement Act to keep tribal and rural communities safe. And I'm thankful for the support of my bill it has received from so many tribes in the district and throughout the state. Again, thank you all for being here today, and I look forward to hearing the diverse perspectives present at today's committee, and hope that all of us will participate and in what's going to be shared with us throughout the day and the week. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Assemblymember Sharon Quirk Silva.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Assemblymember Sharon Quirk Silva. I represent North Orange County and parts of LA. I first want to thank Assemblymember James Ramos. I really believe that the Spirit did bring Assemblymember James Ramos to this exact place at this exact time to shine a light on what you all have known for many, many decades, the violence, the murdered and missing Indigenous children and women and families. And we know that in our communities, it is about communication and coordination. We also know that unless our local government, county government, state, and federal government work together, we will continue to work in silos. I'm astounded at how much effort that Assemblymember James Ramos has put into the efforts that we've talked about today, and his being part of our state assembly has heightened the awareness, as you all know. So with that, we will continue to work to bring action to your communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And our next speaker will be Assemblymember Corey Jackson.
It is definitely my honor to be here, to be able to make sure that we set the right example. And that is when the nations of the Native American people declare an emergency, it is our moral obligation to stand up with them and to treat it as an emergency. And when we don't, there is something wrong with our own humanity. Because we are taught, and we should know, that when one of us are in danger, all of us are in danger. And so I come here to stand in solidarity with the Native American people to ensure that all historically marginalized and oppressed people are treated with the dignity and humanity that they deserve. And so we must continue to call out what we see, and we must make sure that we don't question the needs of these nations. We must give them everything that they need to ensure that they have the self-determination to protect their own people and ensure that they can thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblymember. Thank you so much. Our next speaker will be Assemblymember Carlos Villapudua.
Well, thank you, everyone. I'll be brief. I come here as a listener, but I also come as a fighter. And one thing that I've heard today was that there's been a lot of pain and suffering, and that ends today. That ends now. We need to make sure that we continue to fight. I stand with my colleagues that are here, and I stand with a person that really has been bringing to the floor education, educating us on, because a lot of us don't know this. And my colleague, Assemblymember Ramos, brings this to the floor. He brings this to us. He brings us to the surface for us to know more about us. We're not going to lead unless someone teaches us and someone educates us. And this man has been teaching us and educating us, and I stand with you, brother.
Thank you, brother.
I do. I stand with all of you here in this room. We will stand and fight for this because this pain and suffering must end. So thank you for bringing us to the Capitol. We will continue this fight and make sure that this suffering will never happen again. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Assemblymember. Our next speaker will be Assemblymember Bill Asaley, as this is an issue that affects the whole legislature.
Thank you, Assemblyman Ramos. It's an honor to be here today. And I have to say, when I first learned of this issue, as a former prosecutor, I was a little embarrassed that I was unaware of it and the staggering statistics of violence plaguing the Native American people. And I don't think you can ignore the historical context either in which this is occurring. The history of persecution and, frankly, genocide requires that we have a higher level of attention, and that gives us a duty to do better, particularly when it affects minors who are the future generation. And we have to nurture and support them, not ignore and forget them, which frankly I was shocked that that's essentially what's happening in our foster care system. So I stand today as a partner committed to work on not just this legislation, but other legislation to ensure that the right resources and protections are delivered to every person at every Native American location, because that's what we owe as a society to them. So honored to be here, looking forward to the continued work. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Assemblymember Avelino Valencia.
Good morning. It's disheartening that we have to gather here today to discuss this epidemic. However, I do believe that it is a testament of how important this issue is and the hope that we have to make sure that as we move forward and bring together creative solutions, we do not have to deal with these types of challenges in the future. I have the opportunity to be Assemblymember James Ramos's assembly seatmate. I'm a freshman in the legislature, and the leadership that Assemblymember James Ramos has brought to the legislature and then also educated me on, I truly hold dear. And you all have my commitment to stand alongside with all of you, Assemblymember James Ramos, and our colleagues to make sure that we address this issue now once and for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now we want to bring up to the podium Senator Stephen Bradford.
Good morning, and it's truly an honor to join all these amazing leaders, but especially Assemblyman Ramos and his leadership on this very important issue. It's a shame that we find ourselves in 2023 that we are having to bring attention to the original occupiers of this land, the founders of this land, to show and make sure that the resources are afforded them when their families members are missing or are murdered. And the data clearly speaks that people of color receive disparate treatment by law enforcement and the media when it comes to one of us being missing. So I'm honored to be here as Vice Chair of the Legislative Black Caucus to say that we stand in strong solidarity. And this data was so shocking to me. And following Assemblyman Ramos's leadership with the Feather Alert, it led me to introduce SB 673, which is better known as the Ebony Alert, because the data clearly speaks to the number of African-American young girls and women between the ages of 12 to 25 who are considered runaways, not abducted, not missing, and the same data applies to Native Americans. So I'm here to stand, like I say, in strong solidarity and bring as much attention and resources needed to make sure that we're all safe in this country and our lives are valued just as well as our brothers and sisters on the other side of it. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And showing the array of support from tribal leaders to the state legislature, but also women's issues and the commissions that have been established by the state of California. And today we'll have our last speaker speak to that, and that's Catalina Chacon.
Miyam, Notun Catalina Chacon, Pichangayam. Good morning, everybody. My name is Catalina Chacon. I'm a Pechanga Tribal Councilwoman. I'm here today on behalf of the Commission on the Status of Women and Girls. This week has been, it's a little emotional for me as well, and I'm sure as all you tribal leaders in here, just to have the awareness out there and to thank you, Assemblyman Ramos, for putting this together. This is the first time I've seen this, a whole week, dedicated to this awareness, and we need more of this. The commission is really reaching out. As an enrolled member, I'm the only Native American woman on the commission at this time. So, it makes a difference. They're co-sponsoring the vigil, the candlelight vigil tomorrow, and they're really trying to make awareness to all the people out there and whatever they can do to help the Native American people, the women, the girls, people in general. So we now have a voice at the table, and that's where it starts. I wanted to say thank you. Noshin Lovick, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for the speakers. And immediately following this press conference will be the Select Committee on Native American Affairs, dealing with MMIW, Public Law 280, and the complexities that continue to face California's First People. At this time, is there any questions? Hearing none, this press conference is adjourned. We're going to get a quick